Hi, my name is Jimmy Richardson, and I'm a public historian. And today I'm going to talk about the presidency, the national parks, and African Americans. Now, what is so significant about that is in doing some research, I found a letter that George Washington wrote in 1780 at the Great Falls in Paterson, New Jersey. And this is prior to the information that we all have saying that Alexander Hamilton founded Paterson. And what happens is in 1780, his headquarters was at the Day Mansion in Wayne, New Jersey. And they leave the mansion, they come down to have a picnic at the Great Falls. And in that picnic, he writes a letter to a Virginia politician complaining about the fact that there are no supplies, there are no arms. He just badly in need of supplies, and he's complaining to this politician about that. And it's a wonderful letter. It's a wonderful letter, and that is really the beginning of the national parks recognition of the Great Falls. Now, the African American end of it comes with this. George Washington, of course, we all know, owned a number of slaves in Mount Vernon, Virginia, where he's from. And but there are two African Americans or slaves that George Washington owned that are mentioned in the historic contents of this letter. And his name was William, and they called him Billy Lee. So William Billy Lee was George Washington's valet. Now, in the scheme of things, he would be considered the lifeguard. Now, the lifeguard is equivalent to today's Secret Service. And of course, William Lee or Billy Lee was responsible for making sure George Washington was fed, took care of his clothes, his horse. He was his manservant, for lack of a better word. He was his manservant. That is the first recognition of the presidency and African Americans. And the reason I say it that way is because he was not rank and file. He was talking to him. You know, he's not somebody in the distance as a slave. He was telling, I don't want that. I'm wearing those. I want the other socks. I want bacon instead of sausages. You know, so he was talking to him. The second African American, or the second slave that George Washington owned, was named Hercules. Hercules was George Washington's personal chef who managed the national capital when it was in Philadelphia. And George Washington, obviously, as the president, did a lot of entertaining and catering. Hercules was French trained. He was a chef that was French trained. And of course, in preparing all these meals, he did such a wonderful job. General and President George Washington told him all the food that was left over, he told him he could keep and he could sell, whatever he wanted to do with it. And he sold all that food, what was left over, he sold it. And in the selling of that food, I'm sure he was acquiring and saving his money. Now, when the national capital moves from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C., Hercules disappears. And it's most likely he could finance himself because he had been saving all that money in order to do it. And Hercules runs away, never to be found again. So again, the situation leads to, he was talking to him. He wasn't just rank and file. He was talking to him. I want bacon and eggs again. I don't want sausages. I want this. I got 50 people coming to dinner today. So he's talking to him. And the third person who I like to cite is Prince Whipple. Now, Prince Whipple is a name that a lot of us have heard in elementary school growing up, and Prince Whipple is cited in the famous painting of George Washington in the Delaware in 1775. Prince Whipple is the fourth oarsman back. Now, here is where the controversy comes in. That painting was painted 75 years after the fact by a German painter. And in that painting, the problem comes to light this way. Prince Whipple was actually a slave owned by General William Whipple. And the controversy comes in that General Whipple was in Washington at the time. Now, Prince Whipple was owned by General Whipple. So the controversy comes in that he couldn't have been with him crossing the Delaware at that time. That's the problem with that. So, and again, it's a controversial painting as it relates to Prince Whipple being on that boat. And what made me look further into it, because that meant that Prince Whipple was part of the lifeguard, and that's what made my curiosity made me delve into that. Which means he was at Trenton, and he was also at Princeton at those heroic battles. He was there and protecting, in my estimation, protecting the president. So again, it's a controversial portrait because of those controversial historic facts. So those are the first three African Americans that I like to cite as far as the presidency.